Warning, the Stone Age Gamer includes a lot of bad language. Cover your mother ears.
Good evening and welcome to episode 124 of the Stone Age Gamer podcast for the week of November 4th, 2016. I am Kris Randazzo, and with me as always is Docking Station, Dan Ryan.
Ew.
A few weeks ago, I made that joke specifically because you introduced me to the world of docking.
That's right, I did. However, for anyone who doesn't know the backstory, to just hear out of context, you, man, introduced me, other man, to the world of docking.
What? I didn't know about the lock-on technology with Sonic and Knuckles before I met you. You showed me all about how to dock that game into Sonic and Knuckles.
That's what we're talking about.
It was great. A few weeks ago, Nintendo officially pulled back the curtain on their next game console, the Nintendo Switch. Now the dust has settled. Dan and I thought it would be nice to weigh in with our thoughts. Terrible jokes about docking.
Goodness. So funny.
This is
Don't look it up.
Going so poorly.
Don't look it up. Just if you don't know what we're talking about, don't be like, I'm a Google docking real quick.
No,
Like,
just go to Google
don't
Docs.
do
Do whatever you want. Just Sonic and Knuckles. We're talking about lock-on technology here.
Oh, goodness.
Lock-on technology. So Dan and I thought it would be nice to weigh in on our thoughts, hopes, dreams, and concerns about the Nintendo Switch. Before we get to that, here is your weekly reminder that you can email us at mail@geekade.com and let us know what you think of our show, what topics you would like us to discuss in the future, or just say hello because we always want to hear from you, the listener. Also, one more thing before we get started, our buddy Ferg at the Atari 2600 Game by Game podcast is doing an Extra Life thing this weekend. He's actually going to be playing for 24 hours starting this Friday when this episode goes live on November 4th. I'm going to have a link to his donation page in the show notes. Ferg's an excellent guy. I can't wait to see what he's playing all day.
Yeah,
I'll be tuning in for at least some of it. I donated a couple of bucks. I wish I had more to spend. Atari 2600 Game by Game podcast is a great podcast. Ferg is an excellent guy. Go donate. It's a great cause.
Yay, Ferg.
Yay, Ferg. So here we go. Let's get the basics out of the way. Dan, how are
Chris. Awful.
you? Yeah, me too.
As I said earlier, I can feel from top to bottom of my esophagus, and it doesn't feel good. Like it's fucking hot fire. It's the hottest of fire, and I think I might be dying. And I might not make it to Paper Cuts tomorrow night.
Wow.
Because I felt bad last week, and it's not getting any better. So. I have the plague, or I just...
Well, my son and I got each other matching stomach viruses for Halloween, so...
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Fucking cool.
Poor little dude. He's not too happy.
Well, give him some more candy. I'm sure that'll help.
That'll perk him right up.
No, perk him right the fuck up.
All right, so here, the basics. Formerly called the... Yeah.
Look at you, like, all right, so fucking here it is.
Here
right?
it is. Let's get the shit out of the kids. I want to go to bed. You want to go to bed. We all want to go to bed. The people listening to this want to go to bed.
I know.
All right, formerly codenamed the
bed.
NX, the Nintendo Switch is a new console handheld hybrid coming out in March 2017. And I don't care what anyone says, it's a console handheld hybrid, not a tablet. All right, so there's some jackass online who likes to pop in on every conversation he can find and say, it's a tablet. Well, it's not. You're a jackass.
Well, but even if it fucking is, who cares?
Yeah, like, really, who cares?
Like, is that offensive?
I don't know. It's
Like-
it keeps coming across as like, see, I'm smarter than you. I know that it's a tablet. I know Nintendo said that it's a console, like explicitly used the word console, and it's a machine that connects to your television and uses traditional controllers and uses interchangeable cartridge-based media, but I know better because I'm really smart, and it's a tablet. So you should listen to me. You're all idiots because you think it's a console, because it is, but I know it's a tablet. I hate the internet sometimes.
Me too. It's a vile place.
It really is.
It's just a horrible, misogynistic
Except on
terrible.
geekade.com. It's a wonderful place.
No, even there, it's awful. Fucking just.
Especially there.
What kind of assholes post articles about Halloween every day for a month? We get it. Shit is scary. Get over it, you fucking man children. God damn
And
it.
women children.
No, that's how fucking fucked up we are. We're all men children. Even the women are men children. It's just an awful place.
Even the women are men children.
Fucking.
So, all right, let's rein it back in.
Sorry.
We can still see the rails from here. So it's the Switch is the successor to the Wii U, but as of now, not the official successor to the 3DS, according to Nintendo PR. The
Right.
console is housed in a tablet-like device with detachable controllers on both sides. It can use a docking station to connect your TV for traditional console gaming, or it can be taken on the go for full portable gaming. Unlike the Wii U, the guts of the console itself are in the handheld portion, meaning that meaning that it is a true portable device, and it is not tethered to the base station in any way. The detachable controllers can be removed and configured in several ways for different play styles, and there is also a Pro controller available for a more standard controller experience. The system uses cartridge-based media and will not be physically backwards compatible with any Wii U or 3DS software. There's a large list of confirmed third parties who have pledged support, but that is to be taken with the largest, like a grain of salt the size of Epcot Center, because that can go up in smoke at any time. That said, during the trailer, there was concept footage of Skyrim and NBA 2K17 running. Not that either of those games are actually confirmed or were even, to anyone's knowledge, running on Switch hardware, but the fact that there was video of them included in the trailer is promising. Nintendo has said that stuff was they flat out said that stuff was added in post. They have not been confirmed for Switch, but it is a nice start. Breath of the Wild was also shown, as were unspecified Mario Kart, and Splatoon games. There is a press event scheduled for January 12th where system specs, price, and games in development will be announced, and there will be no further announcements about the Switch until then. So, initial reactions. How do you feel about the Switch? Initial reaction.
Well, my initial reaction, which I typed to all of our friends over at Geekade, was that I was like, oh man, I don't know, because I've tried to do like streaming gaming from, my PS4 to my Vita, like on a high-powered FiOS network and like everything wired, and like, it was super laggy. And then I read an article, because the video didn't make it clear, but that was just my assumption based on what I had known. Then I read an article and was like, no, everything's actually contained within the console and screen. And I was like, oh, right on, that's fucking cool. So if it's truly portable, that's awesome. Which then led me to my other big question, and I think this will be the biggest question about it. What is the battery life?
That is definitely a big concern of mine. I mean, you look at the thing and it's got vents on it, so it's clearly running something that's powerful enough that it really needs proper ventilation, unlike a 3DS or something. So
Right.
This thing is going to consume battery life to some degree. I mean, it's really hard to kind of predict where this is going to go, because on one hand, Nintendo used to really concern themselves with stuff like battery life. Recently, they haven't. I mean, the Wii U gamepad doesn't get more than a couple hours of battery life out of the box.
Right.
You can buy like an extended battery for it, but the 3DS does pretty well for itself. But I don't know, man. I don't know how. I really don't know how the configuration for this is going to be, because you've got battery life for the actual thing itself. Then, because the controllers are removable, do they have batteries in them themselves? Like, they run off a couple of AAA batteries on their own, like just for poops and giggles? Because why bother recharging them? Because we don't even know how much functionality is in them. Are they gyroscopic?
Right.
There's like rumors that they are, but nothing's been confirmed. There's rumors that there's a little rectangle on the bottom. You can see it in the trailer. There's a little rectangle on the bottom of one of the Joy-Cons, which is what the controllers are called, that looks like the IR pointer on the bottom of a Wii remote. So maybe they do IR pointing as well. I don't know, man.
Well, I would have to imagine, because of the shape and design of the controllers and the functionality that they look like they have just from taking a peek at them, they look like modified Wiimotes. So I would thinking about it from Nintendo's business model. You know, you and I have discussed on the show before of what happens to Wii games when they move on.
Yeah.
Because if they're going to keep selling shit digitally and you have tied these games into this specific control scheme, well, now you have to provide that control scheme in every iteration of your console, or at least a way to get that sort of control, like either use my old Wiimotes or whatever. I would have to imagine that these controllers will have the same functionality as the Wiimotes do, at the very least.
Well, I mean, I think that all kind of depends on how inexpensive that technology is at this point, because Nintendo, as of right now, doesn't seem all that concerned. In fact, one of the things I liked so much about this video was that it seemed to be very specifically distancing itself as much as humanly possible from the Wii brand, which means that the folks at Nintendo finally realized that that brand is toxic and they need to stay the F away from it. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that's really a concern of them. If they're trying to cut cost as much as humanly possible, taking out that level of, you know, gyroscopic controls to do motion sensing, like, I don't think there's any need to have gesture controls on this system. I mean, if they're going to do backwards compatibility with Wii games, what are the Wii games that need the backwards compatibility thing going on, right? You've got stuff like
Metroid Prime,
which we already know is a game that's perfectly capable of working without motion controls. You've got your Mario Galaxy games, another game that, I mean, there's pointer, there's IR stuff in there, but, you know, do I think that there's a way to work around that? I definitely. The thing about the way motion controls wound up working out in most Wii games was, with the exception of a very select few, the actual motion of the motion controls wasn't that important. You know, like a lot of the motion control stuff I feel like could just be swapped out with basic button commands.
Right.
The two biggest examples that counter that come to mind are Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword and Koa Rimpa, which is a marble rolling game, which is really super fun, very simplistic, but that was very, very heavily leveraged on twisting the controller with motion controls. So, but I don't know how much they're concerned with having accessibility to those games, because most of those games aren't currently available digitally. I mean, you have a handful of them that are available in the digital marketplace on the Wii U, but by and large, a lot of this stuff is like, are they really going to go out of their way to put that kind of functionality in it when, like, they're not even concerning themselves that much with Wii U backwards compatibility as far as we can tell, because they haven't shown off that there's even a touchscreen on this thing. It would be madness if there wasn't, and I would be genuinely surprised if there wasn't, and chances are they just avoided showing that in the trailer because they want to distance themselves from the Wii U.
Right.
But on the same token, there is no dual screen experience with this. That's one other thing that has definitely been confirmed from Nintendo, is that you can't stream from the Switch onto your television and still have it in your hands. Once it's in the docking station, that screen is covered and it is displaying only on your television. So it is a single screen experience no matter how you slice it.
That seems very strange. That, like, not being able to hold it in my hands and also stream onto the television screen. I understand the question of what's the fucking point, but it seems strange that you can't.
I would imagine it's a cost-cutting measure, because, you know, that's technology that they then don't have to use. You know, if they don't have to put something in there that wirelessly streams to the whole entire signal to a television, that's one less component that needs to be shoved into this little thing, you know?
If if this system gets me the Metroid Prime trilogy without motion controls,
oh boy,
I'm in. Like, I will buy it just for that. And honestly, I will. Because ultimately, I think at the end of the day, all of this stuff looks kind of cool. The docking station looks kind of cool. The controllers look kind of neat. You know, like all the different configurations and things you can do. All of that looks kind of neat. But I'm bummed out that there's no backwards compatibility with the 3DS. That really bums me out because there's some of those games that I would really like to play on a television. And
well, again, it's no physical backwards compatibility, and they were very specific to say that word physical. So we don't know for sure that there's no digital backwards compatibility with 3DS games yet.
And see, like, that seems the perfect opportunity to have TV and screen. Now I've got my 2-screen experience, and I can do the thing. Like, I don't know. It just seems very strange.
It does. I will say that, you know, as somebody who has used the DS Virtual Console on the Wii U before, it's not optimal. Like, it's usable.
No, it's not.
It's not, again, depending entirely on the game. You know, like, if I'm playing Axiom Verge, for example, the map is just displaying on my second screen, which is quite nice.
Right.
But you know, I wouldn't want to play something like Sonic Rush where you're going back and forth between top screen to bottom screen for seamless gameplay. So I don't know. I mean, I would like to think that they're going to try to do, you know, some rejiggering of the older games so that they don't need to use motion controls in order to bring them into the new generation.
That would make me happy in my pants.
Yes, that would put a big fat smile on my face. Like you said, being able to play through Metroid Prime trilogy without the motion controls,
I might actually play through it.
Yeah, I would. I really liked the motion controls. I'm better with the pointer than I am with the dual analog setup. But I think the most comfortable I ever was with the Metroid Prime trilogy was on the first two on GameCube with just the standard GameCube controls. So
right.
I don't know, but then again, it's got to have some sort of gyroscopic stuff in there because, you know, they've used that to great effect when it's used subtly in a lot of their games. Like most of the, I hate to use the word professional, but I'm too tired to think of another one. But the best and most serious Splatoon players swear by the motion controls, as in like using them as like the fine tuning. You know, you move around and then you just kind of, you know, tilt a little bit in a direction. The same thing with the aiming in the Zelda games when you're like, you pull out your bow and arrow and you just kind of tilt the controller a little bit to get, you know, your precision aiming. That stuff's great. So I would really hope to see that stuff's in there. But again, they avoided any and all allusions to that in the trailer. So you hit on one of the big ones, which is battery life. I have a handful of questions here that I have concerns for. I will say that one of the really, my initial reaction to this was, obviously this had been the rumor for a long time, that they were going to do a handheld and console hybrid, and I really wanted that to be the case. Right. I couldn't picture the thing in my head. Like, I couldn't visualize what it would actually look like.
Well, I think because when we heard handheld console, we were imagining DS-sized screens. This will not go in your pocket.
No, it will not.
This is not a handheld. This is not a 3DS replacement.
No, at least not yet. We'll touch on that a little bit later. I have questions about that as well. The thing that makes me very happy is that back in February of 2013, Nintendo consolidated their handheld and console divisions. This, in theory, means that once the 3DS is actually retired, which they said it's not yet, but let's be honest, this is the direction we're moving in. Once the 3DS is retired, that means that all of Nintendo's games will be coming out on a single console. So I won't have to have... See, I like to play if I could play all of my games on a TV, I would. That's where I prefer to play my games, on my couch, on the TV. And then having the option to go take them into bed with me would be fantastic. But if I had the choice, I would always choose the television. And this would mean that everything from 3D Picross to the new Zelda game would be able to be played on my television. And I really, really like that idea.
I'm a fan of that as well.
So let's see. Another question I have. Portable durability. You've mentioned that this is not a 3DS replacement. And I would definitely agree. This is not something that is going to be, something you stick in your pocket. But then again, neither is an iPad, and tablets are big right now. I think the biggest question about the portable durability, though, is like one of the things that Nintendo's always, not always, but since the Game Boy Advance SP, is that really awesome clamshell design,
Right.
The little flippy fold in half thing.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that that's not there kind of makes me sad, and I wonder what, like, obviously, clearly somebody is, like, PDP has already got a screen protector thing in the works, I guarantee it.
Sure.
I think of something kind of like that, like the iPad, little floppity thing that you can flip over it.
Yeah, I have a case on my iPad right now that is a Bluetooth keyboard. So, like, it protects it, and then I can flip it up and use it almost like a laptop. But I can tell you, having an iPad for 2 years now, one thing I have never wanted to do on it was play long-form games. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't want to sit here and, on this size screen, I don't want to play fucking anything other than Puzzle and Dragons. Like, I want to play mobile games on this sort of thing. Maybe I am alone in that, but looking at the iTunes store, the App Store and whatnot, there are not, there's not big time games on there,
Not
like
many of them, no.
Breath of the Wild does not exist on the App Store, so that doesn't mean it couldn't, I suppose.
See, that's that. Now that I agree with you, I feel the same way, but I also know that there are a lot of people that feel quite the opposite, which I don't get. But I've actually heard people talk about this on other podcasts where, like, they played Xenoblade Chronicles X solely on the gamepad screen because that's where they like to play those big kinds of games. Is like while something else is going on a small screen in front of them. I don't get it, but there is a very considerable contingent of people that like to play like big RPGs and stuff on the small screen. I'm not one of them, and I love the idea that it could work for all of us. This could be something on the small screen for them and something on the big screen for me, and it is literally the exact same product. That's fantastic. But to the point of the overall durability of it, like, how strong Nintendo has always built very sturdy machines. I will give them that. Like,
absolutely,
3DSs can take a beating, and God, Game Boys, the legendary Game Boy that took a grenade that was still functioning afterwards.
Right.
Like, that stuff's awesome. How big, how like strong is that clicking mechanism that holds the Joy-Cons in place? Like, if I drop it, is that going to snap in half? Or I don't know, man. I don't know. It's a big question, and it goes right to the point of the 3DS replacement, because there are some really big questions revolving around the 3DS replacement thing. Thing number one is obviously its durability and being able to stack up to kids playing it. But thing number two, and probably the biggest thing, is that if you're a family with more than one kid, you have more than one 3DS.
Probably. Yeah.
So how are they going to get around that with the Switch? Like, you don't have more than one Xbox One in your house. That's usually not the case.
Unless you're fucking fancy.
unless you're really fancy. But typically speaking, you buy a console that the kids share, or you buy multiple handhelds. Is there going to be a configuration of the Switch that allows you to not buy the whole setup? Like, I keep envisioning a situation where they make like something called the Switch S, which is a smaller version of the Switch. It's about the same size as 3DS. The controllers don't separate from it, and instead they're part of like a fold-in-half design, like like the 3DS or the DS line. And it doesn't come with the TV docking station, so it cuts out all those extra costs. And then you can buy a different docking station for that model separately. Because having multiple docking stations in general doesn't sound like a bad idea, because you have multiple TVs in your house. Like, I want to take it into the bedroom and play it over there. I don't need to have I don't want to disconnect the docking station and move it over there. I want to buy like another $20, $30 docking station to connect to my TV for that luxury. That seems like the kind of thing that makes sense to be sold separately.
Right.
But as of now, Nintendo has said that every configuration is going to include the docking station. So obviously that doesn't cut that out for down the line, but that buying multiple Switches for one household is something they need to think about, because there were a lot of people in my time working for Nintendo as a representative in the Toys R Us. Multiple customers wanted to know why they couldn't buy 2 gamepads for their 2 kids.
Yeah, it's something that we've had with both of our kids saying like, well, I want to play on the gamepad. Well, I want to play on the gamepad. Well, you both can't fucking play on the gamepad because you can only use one gamepad on the Wii U. That's it.
Like, it logistically, like, I get that it physically makes sense for Nintendo to only be using one gamepad, but you have to acknowledge the fact that that's a question that consumers are going to have.
Right.
Like,
and rightfully so.
Exactly. Rightfully so. Like, that's just because... And even the Wii U could technically run 2 gamepads. That was something that Nintendo said a while ago, and they said they were going to develop... They were looking into developing games that worked with 2 gamepads, and they would sell them separately, but that obviously never happened.
Right.
Because the Wii U sold, 8 copies. One of them to me.
One of them to me.
Very proudly, I might add. I love my Wii U.
And then that's it.
Yeah.
Those were the only 2 that sold.
But that's a thing. That is a question that I want answered. And I hope that they're thinking about it, because I don't think you're going to get, if this system is priced where I think it may be priced, I don't think you're going to get families purchasing 2 or 3 of them just because they have 2 or 3 kids.
Well, what are you thinking about price?
Well, this is an interesting question. I think that if they want this thing to succeed, that it has to be priced around $250. That's where the Wii was at launch. Do I think that's likely? No, I think the system is going to be around $300. But I think if they want to be aggressive and they want to make a difference, they've got to come out at less than what everybody else is offering. And if they're coming out with the Switch, portable or not, and it's not more powerful, like if it's on par with PS4, which is what the majority of the rumors seem to suggest, that it's going to be on par about with PlayStation 4, not the new PS4, the old one.
Right.
If you're coming out at $350 and you can buy a PlayStation 4 for less than that,
yeah,
who's buying this?
And I think ultimately that's what this all comes down to. Looking through the whole press conference, all of that looked great. Or not the press conference, but the video. All of that looked fun. And, there were some cool ideas and shit in there. But then to hear them come out immediately and be like, so, all that shit we showed you doesn't exist. It's all all fucking rumors and scuttlebutt at this point, was very disheartening. Mm-hmm. To me,
well, again, they didn't say that none of it exists.
Well, but not that it doesn't exist, but that here's Skyrim, and oh fuck, we're all excited about Skyrim, but it's not actually running on the console.
Well,
and here's
that
NBA
was
2K,
the thing. They were very careful about that. They didn't say it wasn't running on the console. They just wouldn't confirm that it was.
Right, which means that it wasn't. So.
Either that, or it means that they, they have some sort of exclusive deal that they did not want to announce any games. Like, that is a hardline stance that they're saying right now. Is like, we're not announcing any games. Like, that's not what this is about. This is just about the functionality. It's misguided, but tell me that isn't a completely Nintendo thing to do.
Oh,
to
no,
actually
absolutely.
show you a game that exists and say, we're not talking about that right now.
Yeah, that's very true. That is very, very, very Nintendo of them. You're so goddamn Nintendo, you. But I mean, that's the thing, though. Like, you as a Nintendo diehard are going to buy this system.
Absolutely.
You're going to. However, me, who loves Nintendo in theory and has owned every system except for an N64, from NES to current, handhelds included. I've had every single one of them, minus the N64.
I didn't know you had a Virtual Boy.
Well, okay. Tiff did. That counts. We're married. What's hers is hers. What's mine is hers. That's how that works, right? That's
Yes.
okay. So having every system from Nintendo, like, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me 17 more fucking times. Like, it's got to be about the games, and I keep buying them, wanting to love them, wanting to, and I thought the Wii U was going to be it. I did. But then they stopped making games for it. I went, oh, shit. I guess not then. Like,
And yeah, that's
not
the
only
thing.
did you stop making games, but the games that you were putting out that I would want to play on your system, like Shovel Knight, I don't want to go through your mess of a fucking store to get to it.
I'm not sure I agree with that one. I find the actual eShop to be very shoppable. Not the Wii Shop channel. That was a mess, but I find the Wii U eShop to be just as shoppable as the PlayStation Store.
The Wii U eShop is fine, but that's what I'm saying. Like, the whole market, like, I want to go back and I want to buy this game. Well, I have to switch to Wii mode. The fuck does that mean? I don't want to do
for
that. I have to get a
the
Wii
Wii
out.
backwards
Like,
compatibility.
what the
Yeah,
fuck?
that's
not
obnoxious.
Like, having to go through those steps, and this is about as big a first world problem as it gets. But when I boot up my PlayStation 4 and I want to buy Psychonauts that came out on PS2, I don't have to go to the PS2 channel. I don't have to do anything else other than type in Psychonauts. Or just look, it's in the Sale of the Dead, on sale for $5.99 this week. I don't, you know what I mean? Like, I don't have to do, there's no hoops to jump through.
There is, I have to play devil's advocate on there, because there is kind of an intrinsic difference between what you're talking about and what's happening. Is because when you're buying Psychonauts, that was a PlayStation 2 game, you're not buying the PlayStation 2 version. You're buying a version that was created and optimized for the PlayStation 4.
Sure.
When you're playing a Wii game on the Wii U, that's actual backwards compatibility.
No, I know
and
that.
The way that was built in was by just shoving a Wii in the Wii U.
I know that.
I get what you're saying, but like for something like Shovel Knight, for example, that was a Wii U game. That was as easy to buy as anything else. But yeah, if you want to go back and play a TurboGrafx-16 game, for example, and you have to switch over to Wii mode and then go into the Wii Shop channel, and you can't access that stuff from your main menu, has always been absurd to me that they haven't bothered with a workaround, because the 3DS works the same exact way. If you want to play a DS game in your 3DS will switch to DS mode, but you'll never notice it.
Yeah.
You put the game in there, it recognizes that it's a DS game, and then it just starts playing the DS game in DS mode. When you put a Wii disc in your Wii U, you have to press the icon to play the Wii disc, and then all it's going to do is just boot up Wii mode, and you still have to press that icon again and hit start. It's insanity.
It really is. But that's what I'm saying. Like, if this system comes out and all of this is streamlined and the games are good, then I'll be interested in it. You know, especially if this sort of thing makes them go through and get rid of certain things, like the fucking motion controls in Metroid Prime. What makes me think that they're not going to do that, though, is the fact that when I want to play Metroid Prime on my Wii U, I have to go into the Wii channel because it's just running
It's
on
just
a
the
Wii.
Wii game, yeah.
It's just the Wii game. They're not bothering to go back and optimize these things.
Yeah, and again, that's going to come. The reason I think that that's unlikely is because they're not excited about Wii U backwards compatibility because there weren't a lot of Wii U's sold, and they're not hearkening all the way back to 2 previous generations because they're not selling Wii games anymore. Like they did a handful of the greatest hits line or whatever they're calling it, a few months back, but that's it. I cannot imagine them really wanting to hit the old Wii audience all that hard because that's going back 2 generations now.
Right.
So I really think they're doing clean break stuff with the Switch, and I think if any of those games are coming over to Switch, they're going to get reworked for like Switch editions. But that's something we'll talk about a little bit later. Let's hit one more of the points before we take a break, and then we'll come back and do a handful of other ones. The other biggest problem that I see, besides battery life, and to me this is a much bigger concern than the battery life. This is my single largest concern, is what is the memory solution? Because like it uses some sort of SD cards, and I know the games themselves will be sold on cartridges, but a lot of modern games are done with downloads. And if they're showing the Skyrim HD remake that just came out or is coming out in a couple of days or whatever, if they're showing that off, that's an actual product. That thing's over 50 gigs by itself. Yeah. That's more than the entire internal storage of the Wii U. Yeah. Like a lot of modern games like Skyrim, the developers couldn't care less about optimizing their size. Like the games themselves are gargantuan because they're not optimizing shit. They're like, that's on the console to figure out that problem. Right. And if we're making our game, fuck you. Exactly. Now, if it was just a home console without the portable aspect, it, again, wouldn't be a problem. Just like the Wii U, you can just hook up whatever external hard drive you want to it. You want a terabyte hard drive on your Wii U? Go nuts. That's it. That option is there, pure and simple. But since this has the handheld component, how are they going to handle that? Like, yes, a terabyte SD cards exist, but they're like over $300. Yeah, they're as much as the system would be itself. So, I mean, I can't imagine them really relying on that unless Nintendo has some sort of really crazy optimizing tools at their disposal, which, to be honest, I think they must. I'm not too concerned about their games because with the exception of stuff like Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, which is inexplicably huge, like games like Super Mario 3D World like are tiny, just tiny files. Yeah. Because they're really good at optimizing their assets. Right. So, but Breath of the Wild is not going to be that small. No, but who knows? It can't be. I mean, just from the simple fact of no matter how much optimization you put into something, the type of engine that creates that consistently persistent world with all the stuff that they're talking about in Breath of the Wild, the engine itself, before you talk about anything else, it just can't be that fucking small. No, it can't. But I mean, that can be the engine itself isn't nearly as much of a memory suck as the assets are. Right. And when you look at a game like Breath of the Wild as opposed to something like Skyrim, Breath of the Wild is using this stylized art style where you can compress, you can find so many tricks to make those assets functional in a game like that, whereas Skyrim is textures upon textures upon textures, you know what I mean? And that's the stuff that's going to eat all of your memory. But those are the kinds of games that people want to play. And those are the kinds of games that they need to get on their console if they want people to buy it. Because what's interesting is to look at like the question of what could Nintendo possibly do to be able to compete in this market. And a lot of people say, oh, if they would just make a game system that was super powerful, just like the PlayStation Xbox, I'd buy it. Like, no, you fucking wouldn't. No, you wouldn't. You're not playing Call of Duty on the new Nintendo system. You're playing it on PlayStation or Xbox because that's what you already have. That's where that market already exists. So Nintendo has to do something different in order to entice people to come over to their system to play these games in the first place. But them doing something different is why people don't want to play on it in the first place. Right. So it's just this snake eating its own tail thing over and over again. But if you think of a game like Red Dead Redemption, like they just announced Red Dead Redemption 2, okay, what if you could take that game on the go with you? What if you could play it on your TV and then play it on the toilet? That's a pretty big selling point. Even if the game doesn't visually stack up, if you have complete autonomy with it, and it is close enough that it can still be easily ported, like it's going to support Unreal 4, holly freaking Luya, so most of these games can be ported to some extent. That's a selling point. But then again, it just comes right down to the storage. How are you going to download these games? Obviously, sure, you could do it all when you're playing it in home console mode, but what are you going to need to do to take this stuff on the road with you?
I am already out of space on my original PS4 hard drive, and that's 500 gigabytes.
Yeah, I mean, that stuff disappears fast.
Yeah.
Like, even if it came with, how much memory could this possibly come with in the first place? Like, I'm assuming it's not coming with much, because that's kind of Nintendo's MO. They don't stuff their systems with a whole lot of internal memory to begin with. But the expanded memory options for a handheld device like this to fit 50, 60 gig games, it's just not reasonable. So
no, it's just really not.
I'm so curious, but that's the thing. These third parties have shown interest in this. They've said, we're on board, we're interested in developing for this system. And these are the companies that are making these games. So
right.
There has to be some sort of solution somewhere. I am genuinely curious what it is, and I hope it isn't like just Nintendo saying, I don't know, deal with it.
Fuck it.
We didn't come up with a solution, but we think the Switch is neat, so have fun.
But we think you should buy one. God damn it.
And I mean, like, honestly, I'm not buying Red Dead Redemption 2. I still have an unopened copy of the first game. I'm sure it's fantastic, but I'll never get around to it. I know me. There are types of games I need to play and types of games that I feel that I don't, and certainly don't have the time for. But what I want to see is this compete in the space with the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. I want to see Nintendo competing in that space with their hardware, and the fact that they outsource to Nvidia and with their digital their mobile stuff outsourcing to DNA, it is showing a willingness to be in this space. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, they flat out said, yes, Unreal 4, bring it on. We're developing stuff, and they're using tools that everyone else is using now, and that's something that has been characteristically not Nintendo for a long time. And I feel like that is a very big step forward for them. I just hope that it works. I hope that this thing isn't just as powerful as a Wii U, and the only selling point is that it's portable and that it's also just as expensive as a PlayStation 4. Because if that's the case, which I really think is a likely scenario, this thing is going to tank.
Oh, God, yeah.
Just like the Wii U is, because I'll buy it and people like me will buy it, but your average consumer is not. They're going to care about a certain degree of specs. And if they don't have the best looking, or at least a comparable looking version of the latest Call of Duty or NBA 2K or Skyrim game, then what's the point? Why have it? Portability is not that exciting to American gamers, not the way that it is in Japan. No, the flip side of that, right. I can see this thing doing insanely well in Japan.
But
put
again,
Monster Hunter on this thing. Sold.
Like we're saying, though, is this really all that portable?
It is at least as portable as an iPad. Like, just if you have a bag or a satchel, then this can be stuffed in there relatively easily, because it's not as big as like an Atari Lynx, you know. It's the size of one of the older handheld gaming systems. It's not small. It's bigger than a Vita, but it's not so much bigger that you're obviously going to need some sort of carrying case for it. It's not going to fit in your pocket to the extent of like your phone or your 3DS, but it is about as accessible as bringing an iPad along with you. And it's got a kickstand.
And it does have a kickstand. That's true.
That was a neat little touch. I was very pleased with that kickstand thing.
I think that's pretty cool. I am intrigued by this system. And that being said, I've been intrigued by every Nintendo system. And really, it just comes down to, it seems like kind of a cop-out to be like, well, it depends on the games. But for real this time, it really just depends on the games.
And the fact that the intrinsic controls in the system don't seem to be anything wacky, like using a touchscreen or two screens. It is 2 analog sticks, buttons, and a D-pad. That's the basics that they're working on. So you don't have that hurdle to get over anymore. Like you won't have some weird ass port of Call of Duty that involves a motion controls or something. Whatever they do control wise, they're on the same page as the industry standards for the first time in 2 generations.
Right. Which I think can only be a good thing, because as much as we love Nintendo games and love them for their Nintendo-ness, they have suffered. They've suffered because of their decisions. I mean, the Wii U should not have been a monster flop.
No,
it should not have been. It's a good system.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. But it's also a system that, because of that touchscreen thing, was as expensive as its competition and half as powerful.
Yep. And that's just not going to work. It's just nobody... Nope. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly. It's not going to work. They're not going to put the games they're putting on PlayStation 4 and Xbox One on the Wii U because it can't play them. As simple as that. And they have to contend with the extra screen and forcing that stuff into their gameplay. And while it was a really, really novel idea, at the end of the day, I don't need that in my games. At the end of the day, when Karen and I play Mario Kart together, we're both grabbing Pro controllers and sitting and playing it like a regular console. When I play Smash Brothers,
normal people.
Exactly. I'm not playing Smash Brothers with my touchscreen. And I mean, crap, think of some of the best games on the Wii not some of the best games, but some of the potentially best games on the Wii that were marred by the forcing of motion controls in them, like Metroid Other M. I'm not saying Metroid Other M is a fucking masterpiece by any stretch of the imagination, but that game would have worked so much better if you didn't have to hold the Wii remote sideways and control a 3D game with a D-pad. Donkey Kong Country Returns would have been phenomenal if you didn't have to shake the controller in order to do the roll, because again, you were forced to use a Wii remote sideways instead of even having the option of using a standard D-pad and jumping on it with a classic controller. And to your point, the Metroid Prime trilogy, a game that you should have played all 3 beginning, middle, and end, but didn't because you were forced to use motion controls.
That didn't work great for me. And, that I think was ultimately one of the biggest failures with it, was that in order to have a really good experience with the motion controls, you had to have an optimal setup. And those optimal conditions don't always exist.
Yeah, I mean, it's not quite as intensive as like the Kinect optimal settings, but still, you had to have optimal settings in order to make that work. And a lot of people just didn't have it. And if they didn't know better, they just thought it wasn't working.
Yeah.
This game, the controls just suck. Well, no, you just have to be in the right settings. It was like Lair on PlayStation 3. Do you really need to have somebody, if you need to have somebody explain to you how to properly work it, like beyond just the basic instructions, then you have failed. Mm-hmm. And thinking about all those great games Twilight Princess is better without motion controls. It just is. It just is. We have proven that. The Twilight Princess HD on Wii U is the most playable version of that game by far. So I don't know. I'm glad to see that they are sticking to a standardized format. I am very concerned about the memory solutions, and I am also very tired. So we're going to take ourselves a quick break. When we come back, we'll hit up a few more burning questions about the Switch and some more positive things and maybe some more fun. You are listening to the Stone Age Gamer podcast from Geekade.com, so stick around. And now here's a look at some of the other original content available right now at Geekade.com. First up, October is over, and with it, Geekade's 31 Days of Halloween. But did you know that you can still catch up on all the great stuff we posted? That's right, Dan! The internet doesn't simply erase everything after it's posted, and thanks to that marvel of modern technology, we still have access to our 31 Days of Halloween tab up and ready to be poked on our website.
Like a Facebook post.
I know, it's ridiculous. It's crazy. You know what's even crazier?
What's that?
Last year's 31 Days of Halloween stuff is still there, too.
Want to read a bunch of old irrelevant shit? We got you covered.
Live the dream. There's podcasts, articles, videos, and even a guy reading a really bad book.
That's right.
So don't miss it.
Next, the Paper Cuts podcast is Geekade's comic book podcast, and new episodes come out every Monday, and this week was no exception. Kris hasn't listened to the episode, so he wasn't sure what to write here about it. There may or may not be both an unnerving and unsettling serenity, depending on whether or not that's a typo in the show notes. But there's definitely some talk about Venom Space Knight, so that's got to be a win, right? Spoilers, it fucking wasn't. Do the universe a favor and listen to Paper Cuts, issue 107, Card Tricks and Battle Axes.
Apparently it wasn't a typo. It was, Evan had to explain the joke to me. And as we've noted on the Stone Age Gamer podcast, jokes are always funnier when you explain them.
Oh my god, the more that you explain it...
I love you, Evan.
Like what? Hey, Kris?
Yeah.
What do cows like to do on a Friday night?
What?
They like to go to the movies.
Get
it? Because like cows say moo, and movies, like if you stretch it out, you could be like movies.
No, I get it.
So it's like a cow movie.
Hey, Dan.
Hey, Kris.
Why don't people like jalapenos?
Why?
Because they jalapeno business.
Oh, like they're nosy. Like they're
Yeah.
that one friend who's on Facebook who like sends you private messages instead of just posting on your feed like every fucking buddy else, and you're like, what are you doing, asshole? Fucking Jesus, Uncle
Just
Stephanie.
like a jalapeno.
Just like... That's right. I like that I said Jesus, Uncle Stephanie, and you just went right past it. My family is fucking open. Don't judge us.
Then, this week, on Apathetic Enthusiasm, Brandon and Travis take the Myers-Briggs test to see what personality types they are. And surprisingly enough, they both came up with podcast host, so they're right on the right track. Find out if I'm lying on Apathetic Enthusiasm, episode 91, Multiple Personalities.
Finally, Jonathan Fugger gets jalapeno in the Patriot spirit. Fuck. Never mind. Gets us all into the patriotic spirit just in time for the presidential election by welcoming Nuke to the D-list. The man has an American flag tattooed on his fucking face, so he clearly believes in freedom. Learn all about Marvel's more patriotic than Captain America character and welcome to the D-list, Nuke. Give me a red.
You can catch all this great stuff, plus tons of other articles, videos, jalapenos, podcasts, bad jokes, and more right now at Geekade.com.
Oh, salsa.
back talking about the Switch and nothing else.
Oh, goodness.
Now, I gave my opinion on price. Dan, what do you think it should cost? And what do you realistically think it will cost?
Oh, what do I think it should cost? Really, if they... Man, because the Wii U came out at $300, right?
I don't know. It was I think it was $350, yeah.
Yeah, the Wii U came out at basically $50 less than a PS4 and an Xbox One. And we've all seen how that turned out. Not very well.
It was a wise business decision.
Yeah, I mean, so realistically, this thing has to come out at a price that, I mean, if we're thinking it's March is the release date.
Yep.
Smarch. Lousy Smarch weather.
Lousy Smarch weather.
By that point, we're going to have the PS4 Slim, the PS4 Pro, which will be the most expensive model, and then the Xbox... Is it the Xbox One Slim or the Scorpio? What the fuck is it being called?
The Scorpio is the turbocharged one.
Okay.
And really, who cares what the other one's called?
Yeah. Suffice it to say, there will be multiple versions of consoles. So there's going to be something around that $300, maybe even by March, $250 price point. Because we're getting, in March, I mean, we're getting close to like E3 price drops and that sort of thing. Like all that happens around that time. So this thing has to come out at like $250. If it's more than $250, like if it's $300, like you said, if I'm walking into a store and I'm trying to decide between the PlayStation Slim, the PS4 Slim, which I know what I'm getting with that. I know all the functionality I'm getting. I know the games. I know the pedigree of it. And there are some fucking world beaters of games out right now for PS4 and for Xbox One for like $20. You know what I mean? Like there are great games for next to no money whatsoever. So if I'm walking into a store and I'm like, well, I could spend this much money on this, or I could spend the same amount of money to play Breath of the Wild. How much do I want to play Breath of the Wild? Because right now, I know they're going to announce games. Obviously, they're going to have a whole launch lineup.
That's coming January 12th.
But it has got to be the greatest launch lineup in the history of gaming to fucking sway me away from buying a PS4 or an Xbox One at that point, if they're the same price.
Now, this is another thing that I hadn't really considered, but it just popped into my head. Unless, of course, they somehow successfully managed to market it as the sexy new piece of tech. Like, this is something that, like, phones and stuff get away with all the time. Like, nobody bats an eye with how expensive the new iPhone is.
No, that's true.
So,
but
it really depends on... Do I think that's realistic? Not really. But,
right.
I mean, what if Nintendo comes out with something... Oh, Jesus, here's a wacky idea. What if they're going to do a totally different approach? What if they have some sort of service that's something like your PlayStation, the PS Plus service, and the cost of the system is offset by a subscription to their Nintendo service? Like, similar to the way that they do with phones or something like that.
Right. Well, because that's what I was going to say. Like, yes, they announced the price of an iPhone, and it's like, well, the 64 gigabyte model is $800. Like, I don't fucking pay $800 when I get a new iPhone. I go sign some bullshit contract I don't understand with Sprint, and they fucking give me one, and I walk out of the store. Like, there's no money that exchanges hands anywhere.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
I don't know how this is happening, but I have one, and it works.
Whatever. It works. I fucking get to make phone calls, and you charge me an arm and a dick for it every fucking month. Like, it's just fine. Here, have one of my children. We'll swap every other month. You give me one back, I'll give you this one. That would be really cool. I don't know. I don't think Nintendo can get away with marketing itself as the sexy new piece of hardware because Splatoon. Like
But
that's
they
what they
did
showed,
with
you
the
know?
Wii. That was Wii Sports. That's why the Wii sold.
But
it was
wasn't
the
sexy.
thing that
It wasn't
everyone
sexy.
needed to have. Well, that's the thing. It kind of was. It was this sleek little 2-button remote thing that every single person looked at and said, I understand what this is. That looks fun. I have to have it. Like,
But there's a difference between what you just said. The sexy new piece of hardware at $400 or $300 versus the simple fun thing at $200. Those are entirely different markets, right? I mean,
that is true. That is true.
My mother-in-law has a Wii. She will not be getting a Switch. I can fucking bet you dollars to donuts that next time I go out to Texas and fucking drive over to her house, there will not be a Switch sitting there.
Probably the truth, yes.
You know, the Wii U sold, or the Wii sold because you're right. Old people could fucking virtually bowl, and that sounded great. Old people are not going to be able, with their fucking arthritis and shit, to take the console apart and put it together in different configurations. Like that, there's so much going on with it that it's not good. It's not a simple piece of tech.
No, and they're not marketing. They're not aiming it at that audience either. You can
Which
tell
is
from
awesome,
the ad.
and they shouldn't be.
Yeah, they shouldn't. They're pointing this thing square at gamers.
Right.
Well,
but
I'm wondering
kids,
if there's
because kids intrinsically understand this kind of shit. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, I promise you, I can give this to they'll be 7. They're 7 now. When this system comes out, they will almost be 8. I promise you, I could just sit them in front of a Switch, and they will fucking have it figured out, no problem. Mm-hmm. Like, kids will understand this, but my mother-in-law will have no idea what to fucking do.
True,
So,
or won't even want to do anything with it because
right,
it looks
even
like a video
interested.
game.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't look like some neat little toy. But
right.
I guess back to the point that I was trying to make, and I didn't failed miserably with the Wii. Mm-hmm. If there's a way, if they manage to successfully market this not as competition for Xbox One or PlayStation, not even as a traditional game console, but just as this is the cool gadget that you need to have. If they manage to successfully do that, then they might be able to get away with a slightly more expensive price point, which I feel like they might have to, because I look at this thing and there's no way that thing is inexpensive. And they've already said that they will not be selling it at a loss. So,
right. Well, now here's, and I really do honestly hate to bring it back to this because I don't want to seem like I'm trying to make a point out of it for a weird reason. But one of the announced partners for the Switch was Gung Ho. Gung Ho makes Puzzle and Dragons. So, theoretically, could we see the Switch? Because I think this would then work to your point. And fucking internet troll who's like, well, it's a fucking tablet, man. If we see that sort of market on this system, now we're talking about something else entirely.
Mm-hmm. And that's the interesting thing about the Switch, is that it's capable of catering to the portable market and the handheld, the console market.
Right, but we're talking, but again, because there at this point, I think we can say there's 3 distinct markets. There's the home console, with console PC, home gaming, handheld gaming, which the Vita is dying a slow death everywhere but Japan. They fucking all but forgot about it in America. Mm-hmm. But then there's also mobile game.
Yeah.
Right. It's kind of 3 distinct genres of or the fucking categories to sell your game in. And when you look at a company like Gung Ho, who is making a fucking buttload of cash on something like Puzzle and Dragons, if I can download that to my Switch and it's a touchscreen and I can play it, but not necessarily have it to be something, have to be on my television, like now maybe you can get it as this is the cool new piece of tech.
Yeah.
You know, and that would make it very cool. Plus, it would give me a reason to have yet another Puzzle and Dragons account. But Yeah, but
or
you see
have
what
it
I'm
work
saying?
with
like,
your existing Puzzle and Dragons account.
right. I mean, I could, but I would just start over. Like that to me now is a much more interesting prospect of kind of combining console, handheld, and mobile gaming. Like now that's something that I would be much more interested in. But there's so many questions.
Yeah.
So many questions.
So, I mean, there's some more simple questions.
Fuck
like,
it, buy a PS4. Just
obviously, is it region locked? There's been rumors that say it isn't. I think it's about time for that to be the case. Screw region locking. And then how is it going to handle my virtual console stuff? Like, they know what I've downloaded. Are you going to make me buy Super Mario Brothers 3 again? Are you going to make me pay $6 for that game again?
you better not.
I don't want to.
You better not.
But like, seriously though, like, how good is their? They're obviously going to have some kind of virtual console because they always do, and it would be foolish to not. But first off, are they going to take the emulation seriously like they do with their Super Nintendo and other emulation, or are they just going to crap stuff on there like they did with their NES emulation on Virtual Console for Wii U, which was awful? And really, the account system is very, very important to me. At this point, there's no reason that there should be so much disconnect between my Nintendo devices. Like, I should be able to play the games that I bought on one console on another one. I have bought these games tons of times over, and I have registered them digitally since the beginning. Like, as far back as you could register your purchases on Nintendo, with Nintendo, I have been doing it. So they know, they have a record of everything I've owned that has been capable of being registered. So is there going to be a way to, is there going to be finally some sort of way to take my purchases on these older games and bring them over to the newer system? Even if it's just as simple as what they did with the Wii to the Wii U, like how it knew what games I had on the Wii Virtual Console, so when they came out to the Wii U, I could upgrade for like $1. Like, I'd be okay with that. I would pay $1 for, to be able to play my Virtual Console games on the Switch, depending on the game.
Sure.
But for example, if I got a 3DS or whatever, if I say I had the new 3DS and I bought Earthbound on my Wii U, I would still have to buy it on my 3DS.
Right.
That's dumb.
That's very dumb.
I want that to be over. So that is a big wish for me. I don't want that to be the case anymore. Do you have any big wishes for this system?
Mine goes exactly along with yours. I want this to be the system that Nintendo finally fucking grows up with. Because I understand the idea that Nintendo has been the kid system and it's always been the kid-friendly company, but the kids aren't fucking playing the Nintendo shit anymore. Like,
at least not in the numbers that they used to.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Like, kids still love Mario, sure. My girls
and they love Pokemon.
Love Mario, and they love Pokemon, but they're not playing Pokemon on fucking Wii U, and
because they never released it on Wii U.
They never released it for some reason, and I want this to finally be the system. I mean, the fucking GameCube had a handle on it. Like it's got a fucking handle. But I'm not fucking playing Halo LAN tournaments on my fucking GameCube. Why does this thing have a handle? Like, why did you make it look like a toy? And the Wii was a fucking toy, and like, stop, don't fucking make a toy. This doesn't look like a toy.
Yeah,
but
this is the first time in a long time their console has straight up not looked like a toy.
Yeah. But in order for that to work, everything has to be streamlined. Everything has to be fucking streamlined.
Yeah, they need to technologically grow up. That's what I think you're trying to say.
And that's the long-winded way of me getting there. Enough with the friend codes.
Yeah.
And the ridiculous steps that you have to take to do, fucking stop it.
Yeah.
Stop it. Like, and I'm
there
not,
needs to be voice chat, you know?
right. And
Stop
I don't
cutting that
even-
out just because you're afraid someone's going to curse at me.
Right. Somebody's going to say, fuck. Really? No shit they are. Like, come on. Stop it. I don't even want you to start on the nonsense with Mario Maker. Because trying to find levels from your friend, like, all of that needs to be fixed.
It got better, but it still didn't get perfect. And even then, it should have been better right out of the gate.
It should have been great from the beginning. There shouldn't have been an update to be like, oh, I can star a user. Can you even fucking star a user? Like,
yeah,
you
absolutely.
Can, right?
You can just follow a user, and any level they make, you'll get a notification about it.
Right.
It's great now.
That was added after people fucking lost their mind.
Yeah.
You know, this is all stuff that needs to be in place from the very beginning. You know, if I want to go on and play a game on my PS4 and find Evan who's got a PS4, there's fucking 10 different ways I can do that on here. You know, his name will pop up in my fucking friend feed. I can find him because I'm friends with him on Facebook. You know, he sends me fucking dick pics on Tinder. That's on here too. I can fucking find him that way. There's there's so many different ways to do all this shit. You know, Nintendo needs to grow up.
Yeah,
because
and
really at this point, and I'm just one person, but I don't think I speak for the minority here. I do think I speak for the majority. I am not buying another Nintendo system if it's going to be another fucking mess like what the Wii U is. Because with the Wii U, they burned people bad. You know, the Wii was cheap, and say what you want about shovelware and whatnot, a lot of the shovelware was still fucking fun. People bought carnival games, and they had fucking fun throwing darts at balloons and all that shit. People bought Wii U's and were like, what next? I bought Mario Kart, but the online system, it's a fucking mess. So I don't even want to bother trying, you know, with any of this bullshit. And, like, you gave me some DLC, and that was cool, but, like, what's the next thing that I'm doing? Oh, it's coming out 8 months from now? You know what I mean? Like, it's just...
For a lot of gamers that are more used to the kind of output that, like, the PlayStation or the Xbox has, yeah, that's a big deal. And, like, for me, it doesn't even faze me anymore because that's just how I play games. I've been working on Axiom Verge for, like, over a month now.
Well, sure, you know,
you're absolutely right.
That's not the majority.
Yeah, I am the minority. They need to be able to work with those kinds of that kind of a release schedule, and combining their mobile and their handheld and console divisions is going to help with that. But also, to your point of them needing to grow up, is that they need to create an environment where their more mature games can sell, because they have bankrolled and or made some really cool games that are not for kids. Like Resident Evil 4 was a GameCube exclusive at first, like, but it was on the freaking GameCube.
Right.
Bayonetta 2 is an outstanding action game that is in no way for children, but it's on the Wii U, so
nobody bought it.
A fraction of the audience that a game like that could have.
Yeah.
So that I'm going to bring into our last topic for the night. One of the big rumors is that Nintendo is going to be bolstering their launch lineup with several enhanced ports of some of the best Wii U games, and making the jump over to the Switch. So, what games do we want to see that happen to?
Dude, at this point, other than Bayonetta 2 and Xenoblade Chronicles, I don't think they have anything that people would be excited enough about to buy the system.
Well, these aren't going to be the system sellers. Like, I don't imagine these are the system sellers. I think these are the games that people will buy in addition to games that are coming out as part of their regular launch lineup.
But see, like, what my thought is with that is, okay, if I'm going to go buy a Switch, then there's a pretty good chance that I have already had a Wii U. I don't know at launch that you're going to get a ton of people that don't have a Wii U buying a Switch.
Well, see, I think that's what their goal is has to be. Is that,
Sure,
and that's what their goal is, like off the bat. They want to get the people that skipped over Wii U, which there is a considerable number of. And they've already got far more goodwill with the Switch, just based on that one commercial, than they ever did with the Wii U. So they're already off to a good start. So I think it is realistic to expect that a lot of lapsed Nintendo gamers are going to give the Switch a try, because that seems to be the general trend of what people are talking about right now.
Right.
Like, obviously, we won't know that for sure until they release all the rest of the specs and all that stuff that's coming out on January 12th. But right now, I have seen a lot of people on the internet say things like, I skipped the Wii U. I haven't bought a Wii console. Like, I skipped the Wii and the Wii U because they looked dumb as hell. This is the first Nintendo system I've seen in a long time that makes me want to buy it. That's a pretty strong message, and I've seen a lot of it out there. So I think it's safe to assume that if the rest of the information goes well, a lot of people that didn't buy the Wii or the Wii U in particular are going to be interested in buying this thing. Which is why it makes sense for them to take some of these games that they've invested a ton of time and money into and try to put them on a system that has a better chance to get people to play those games.
What are you thinking? Because I think one of the ones that would be considered would be something like Splatoon. Mm-hmm. And I think that would be a mistake.
See, I think that makes a lot of sense, because again, Splatoon sold very well, particularly in Japan. And if they just upport Splatoon with some general fixes, the big complaints that people have problems with Splatoon in the first place, just some basic stuff, instead of jumping straight into a full-on sequel. Right. That's an inexpensive way to get that brand into more hands. And again, I think that's something that would be very, very successful in Japan, because you would essentially be creating a portable version of Splatoon at that point.
Which they showed, right?
Exactly. They showed Splatoon in there, and it didn't look like a new game, but it definitely had features. There were weapons that didn't exist in the Wii U game. It was on a stage that wasn't in the Wii U game, and they had different hairstyles, which are, apparently that's a big deal with the Splatoon thing, is customizing hairstyles.
Is it?
I guess. I don't know. I played Splatoon online a handful of times. I got the crap kicked out of me. I had a lot of fun doing it.
Sure.
But that game is great. But
my question is, if I am a lapsed Nintendo gamer and I have been playing Halo and Call of Duty and Titanfall and all of this stuff, when I look at Splatoon, is that the one that's pulling me in?
I don't know.
I don't think it is. Yeah. I don't know, but
see, that's just it. I don't know. It's so different from those things. It's a shooter with Nintendo charm, and I think that's why that was so successful in the first place. So I don't know if Splatoon is going to get the people who are playing those other games in particular, to do that instead. But I think there's a contingent of people that are playing games like Overwatch that, if they saw a very attractive version of Splatoon, would look at that and say, that does look interesting. I want to try that.
I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. And also that, again, will depend on price.
Yeah,
if I'm looking at a $300 system and the up-resed version of Splatoon is $60, nope.
Now, I think another obvious one, well, I mean, like, there's the other one that they showed off in the trailer was Mario Kart.
Right.
And what I was looking at there was what looked like, in most respects, Mario Kart 8, in a course that was in Mario Kart 8, except they showed the characters with two different items at the same time, which is not a feature in Mario Kart 8. And King Boo was one of the characters who was not a playable character in Mario Kart 8. So is that some fancier version of Mario Kart 8? I would be fine with that if they just said, here's Mario Kart 8. It includes all of the DLC tracks, plus here's a handful of new features, a couple of new characters, a couple of more tracks on top of that, and it's like $40 or something. I'd buy that game again for that price, because that's a really, really good game, and it'll hold me over until they make a proper new Mario Kart for the system.
Right.
A little bit down the line. But I think I think one of the most obvious and best things that they could do on there would be to do an enhanced port of Smash Brothers. Because
that would make a lot of sense.
A new Smash Brothers is not in the cards anytime soon. Those games take forever to make.
Right.
And Smash Brothers on Wii U sold very well, but not as well as it could have.
Right.
And if they say the Smash Brothers for Wii U was held back in some respects because it was inextricably linked to the 3DS game, which is why there wasn't like Ice Climbers in there, for example. If they made the Switch port of Super Smash Brothers that included, I don't know, returning characters like Ice Climbers and Solid Snake, say, include all the levels that were in both of the versions, smack them all dabbed together in fancy HD graphics, with all the wonderful control options that are available on the Switch, maybe even throw a new character in there. Like, I don't know if you're going to get Konami to throw Solid Snake in there, maybe finally introduce Simon Belmont into the game. I don't know. I'm just throwing spaghetti at the wall, see if it sticks. But seriously, just porting that Smash over to Wii U, over to Switch, I think it would be a very smart move, because it's going to be a long time before we get a proper new game, and Smash for Wii U is, in my opinion, the best one in the series. It's not as fast as Melee, which I don't think it needs to be, but it's faster than Brawl. Like, it plays the best. It's incredibly well balanced. You see that in big tournaments like Evo and whatnot. There's never like, oh, everyone's Sheik. It's not like that. It's everyone's a different character, because it's remarkably well balanced. So that's my biggest vote for a game from the either Wii U, and I'm gonna say the toss 3DS games in there that I think should be upported to bolster the launch lineup of the Switch. What about you?
It does
Come up
make
with another one.
It does make a lot of sense. Well, I think things like Xenoblade Chronicles, like Bayonetta, games that gamers should have or would have played given the opportunity to do so. I think those are the titles that you would want to focus on. I can't really think of any others that are obvious, like, standout choices.
Bayonetta's a really good one. That should make the jump.
Bayonetta makes the most sense to me. But I also think, and this is where it's going to be interesting to see what they do, because I think something like the Punch-Out that came out on Wii makes a lot of sense, because that game's fucking awesome.
It
but
is.
Nobody fucking played it.
Oh, yeah, they did. That game made its money.
Well,
that game was over 1 million seller, man. That game did great.
But what I'm saying is that if you were not a Wii U guy, there's a market
I will take an HD port of that any day of the week. But yeah, no, Punch-Out Wii did very well for Nintendo.
But you see what I'm saying? Like, there's a market there of people who would not have played that and make it available. Give me an opportunity, because I skipped, this random person here on the internet. I skipped the Wii, so I missed out on a game like that.
Yeah.
That, and I think Carnival Game, really, when you come right down to it, those would be my two choices.
Let's see. I mean, if we're talking like Bayonetta 2, I think would be a great one. I think the other Platinum Games one, Wonderful 101. That game was fucking awesome.
It
was weird, but it was really cool. I would love to see that make the jump. I would love to see a Skyward Sword HD that just removes all the motion controls.
All the bullshit.
That would just be really delightful. And for me, the motion controls really did work well in that game. I had a lot of fun with it, but anytime I think of replaying it, all I really want to replay is like going through that world and experiencing that game. And I would love to see that game's visuals in HD, because it was really nice, had a really nice art direction a lot of the time. 3D. I would love to see an HD port of Kid Icarus Uprising. I've been saying that for years.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Put that game on my television, please, please, please. Jeez, I know I feel like there's a Wii U game that I was thinking of very specifically that I would really love to have on there, and now I'm just drawing a complete effing blank. Wii U games in my library. Wii Party, yeah. Oh, that was it. It was Star Fox Zero.
Oh, there you go.
I'd like
yeah.
very much for them to take Star Fox Zero and just make it control like a Star Fox game.
Right.
Like that's all you need to do is just take out the second screen thing, all the weird motion control stuff, just take all that out, apply a basic control scheme to that game.
Right. Let me just play a video game.
Because I got to tell you, man, Star Fox Zero has some really that game really has some cool moments in it. Like I still haven't finished it. I don't get a lot of time to play it cuz my son isn't really interested in it, and I don't get to play a lot of games when he's not around. So, but there's so many cool things. When that game works, it friggin' works, man. It is great. But then you just, anytime you're like the walker, or you get in a situation where you really need to point your screen and turn yourself 180 degrees around just to do some basic functionality. Like,
nope.
It's so obnoxious because, man, when it works, it really friggin' works. And Mario Maker. Mario Maker has to be on this system. And not just a port of Mario Maker. They need to make Mario Maker 2. I don't know how you do this without a proper touchscreen setup. They need to figure that shit out, because Mario Maker... I had so much fun with Mario Maker, and that game was a huge success for Nintendo.
Yeah, it really was.
And I still play it. If I need something to play for 5 minutes, it's real easy to toss that game in and go to the random challenge and just play a bunch of bullshit random levels. And sometimes they're awful, sometimes they're great, sometimes they're just so bad they're hilarious. But I still play Mario Maker very frequently. It is in my regular rotation when I'm just looking for something to pass the time. And the port to 3DS confuses me because it's... Okay, you're not going to do the whole level sharing thing the same way. Like, how many people do you think are going to be buying this and having their 3DSs bump into one another so they can trade levels locally? That's not fun. But
right. Again, grow up. Like, please do this in a way that fucking people understand.
Yeah. Make it all make sense.
Just make it make sense. But
all right. Well, I think that's it. I think we've covered the majority of the bases. I can't think of anything else extremely important to talk about. Again, January 12th is the day. That's when we find out the basics on whether or not we really think this thing is going to be the thing that puts Nintendo back on the map, or if it's just a horrible, miserable failure. And I, for one, am really hoping that they pull it off, because the Switch reveal was better than I could have imagined it. It went so... The overwhelming positivity on the internet that came up after that was almost frightening to me. Like, it took way longer than I thought it would to start seeing all the hate, the hate towards it, because it's the internet. Everyone hates everything on the internet.
That's true.
But the fact that the overwhelming majority seems to be positive on it was really, really surprising. And I hope that they can continue with that momentum. So we shall see.
We want it to be good.
We desperately do. And I'm so glad the Wii branding is nowhere near it. I am so happy that name is officially behind me.
No, it's the Wii Switch.
It's the Wii Switch.
We
switched it to Wii.
It's
called the Wii 3.
The Wii 3? Oh, the Wii 3? That's good, actually.
It is.
All right.
It's just called the Nintendo 3. THRII.
All right. End the show. End the show before
and that's our show.
You give them any ideas, because that's some shit that I'm going to see in a minute now. Like, fuck, they were listening, which awesome, but, fuck.
Join us next week when we'll be starting a 2-week experiment involving games we love, games we no longer love, games we can't go back to, games we've broken up with. It'll make more sense next week, I promise. But it's a really neat idea that Dan had, and I'm pretty stoked to mess with it. So
that's right. It's a really neat idea that Dan stole completely and totally from NPR.
No, he didn't. He came with it all on his own.
All myself from NPR.
While listening to NPR.
While listening to NPR. It was just, it happened.
Once again, you can get in touch with us at mail@geekade.com, as well as all flavors of social media that we inhabit. You can like us on Facebook, find us on Instagram at Geekade, subscribe to our YouTube and Twitch channels for all our latest video content, and follow us on Twitter at @the_Geekade. You can also find us individually on Twitter. I'm at Geekade Kris, and Dan is at
Geekade Dan.
I'd like to have you say it.
Oh,
if you're interested in more information about anything we discussed tonight, except docking, be sure to check out the show notes. And while you're at it, you can also subscribe to this and any of our other wonderful podcasts on iTunes or Stitcher, or if you're super nice, you can leave us a review, because any and all feedback is welcome and appreciated. We would also like to thank Mark TDK Knight for our show's theme. You can check him out on SoundCloud and Bandcamp, or his website, which we have a link to in the show notes. And I would also like to thank our producer Evan for editing this show and getting it on the internet for all of you every week. Again, always remember to keep your eyes on geekade.com, where we post something new every single day. Thank you again for listening, and on behalf of Dan and myself, keep playing games.